Okay, so today we're diving deep into a business idea that a lot of folks might be curious about, starting a credit repair business in Florida.
Right.
You might be thinking about starting a business yourself, or maybe you're someone who's thought about using those services yourself.
Absolutely.
Understanding how it all works down in the Sunshine State, I think, is going to be valuable.
For sure.
So we've got a detailed guide today breaking down all the steps for launching this type of business in Florida.
Yep.
And we're going to try to pull out all the most important legal stuff,
Right.
practical steps you need to take, and give you a feel for the market realities.
Yeah. That's the mission.
All right. So
Okay.
first things first, I guess, is credit repair even legal in Florida?
It is legal, but it is governed by a pretty specific set of rules.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's legal,
Okay.
but we have to think about the laws both at the federal level and at the Florida state level.
Okay.
So the big one nationally is the Credit Repair Organizations Act.
Okay.
We usually just call that CROA.
CRO.
Yeah. And then in Florida, we've got the Florida Credit Service Organizations Act.
Okay. So we've got a federal and a state law that we got to keep in mind.
Yes. That and
All right, so what's the main reason these laws even exist? Like, what are they trying to accomplish?
Well, bottom line is consumer protection. They want to make sure that these businesses are operating ethically and transparently, and they want to protect people from any kind of shady or deceptive practices.
Okay, so they're setting boundaries, basically.
Exactly.
All right, so someone's thinking about starting this business. What are some of the specific no-nos under CROA?
Okay, so CROA is really strict about charging upfront fees.
Oh, okay.
So you can't demand payment before you've delivered any services.
Got it.
They also don't want you making any kind of misleading or false statements
Okay.
about how much you can improve someone's credit or advising someone to create a false identity.
Can't just magic up a clean credit report for somebody.
No, you can't do that.
All right.
That's a big no-no.
Makes sense. What about other must-dos, like legal requirements under these laws?
So mandatory disclosure agreements are huge.
Oh, okay.
Credit repair companies have to lay out a consumer's rights very clearly,
Okay.
both under federal and state law.
Right.
And they have to be really upfront about what services they're providing,
Okay.
how long it's going to take, and tell the client that they have the right to cancel.
So basically, transparency.
Total transparency.
Communication with the client is key.
Absolutely.
Okay, so someone's thinking, all right, I get the legal stuff.
Yeah.
What are the actual steps to set up shop in Florida?
Okay.
Do you need a special license for credit repair specifically?
This is where things get a little tricky.
Uh-oh.
The guide we're looking at seems to say that there isn't a specific credit repair license
Okay.
from the state,
Cool.
but it also kind of implies that you might need to register as a credit service organization.
Okay. A CSO.
Yeah, a CSO with the state, so there's like a little bit of contradiction.
So there's some ambiguity in the guide here.
Right.
Okay, so if our listener is thinking about doing this, what should they do?
Honestly, I would double check
Yeah.
with both the Florida Department of State
Okay.
and the Florida Office of Financial Regulation.
Get it straight from the horse's mouth, basically.
Exactly, because you want to make sure you're completely compliant
Yeah, absolutely.
right from the beginning.
Especially when we're talking about legal requirements.
Oh, yeah,
Better safe than sorry.
absolutely.
Now, one thing the guide does mention that's pretty clear-cut is a surety bond.
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
So in Florida, you're required to have a $10,000 surety bond to run a credit repair business.
$10,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's basically a way to protect consumers.
Okay.
So if the business doesn't hold up their end of the bargain or they break the law,
Right.
clients can use that bond to get their money back.
Oh, so it's like a safety net.
Exactly. It's a safety net for the customer.
Got it. And do you have to pay the whole $10,000 up front?
Not usually. No.
Okay.
It's typically a percentage of that bond amount each year,
Okay.
and it varies depending on your credit.
Oh, so good credit helps.
Yeah, so if you have good credit, you'll pay a lower percentage.
That makes sense.
So yeah, usually it's somewhere between 1% and 10% annually.
Okay. All right. What about just the regular business license stuff?
Right.
Do you need that?
Yeah. So even if you don't need that specific state credit repair license, you'll probably still need a general business license or permit
Okay.
to operate locally.
Yeah.
And that varies by city and county.
Got it.
In Florida. So check with your local government
Okay.
to see what they require.
Makes sense. And what if you're selling like physical products or certain types of services as part of your credit repair business?
Right. So if you're offering things like physical copies of credit reports or maybe some kind of subscription to a credit monitoring service,
Yeah.
you'll probably also need to get a sales tax permit
Okay.
from the Florida Department of Revenue.
Got it. One more legal thing that caught my eye in the guide was this thing about giving legal advice.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Tell me about that.
So you cannot give legal advice to your clients
Okay.
unless you're a licensed attorney in Florida.
Got it.
So you can't offer legal strategies
Right.
or interpretations or opinions.
It's not legal advice, it's credit repair.
Right. You're helping them repair their credit. You're not their lawyer.
Got it. Okay, so navigating the legal stuff is a pretty big deal here.
It's super important.
All right, let's talk about actually getting started.
Okay.
The guide really stresses having a solid business plan.
Yes.
Why is that so important for a credit repair business specifically?
Well, it's your roadmap.
Okay.
Forces you to think through all the essential elements.
Okay.
Who your target market is going to be.
Right.
What services you're offering.
Right.
How you're going to price things.
Got it.
And your marketing plan.
So thinking about SEO and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure people can find you online.
Right. Credit Repair Florida, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What kind of startup costs are we looking at here?
Well, it can vary quite a bit.
Yeah.
The guide says you could be looking at anywhere from a few $100s to several $1,000s.
Okay. So pretty big range.
Yeah, it really depends on whether you're working from home or if you need to lease an office space
Right.
and how much you're spending on marketing and advertising right out of the gate.
Can you break down some of the specific initial expenses that someone should be prepared for?
Sure. So the surety bond is a big one right off the bat.
Okay. We talked about that.
Then you've got legal and licensing fees,
Right.
which, again, will vary depending on where you are.
Okay.
You'll also need to budget for software subscriptions
Oh, yeah.
to manage client data, create dispute letters, and all that stuff.
Got it.
Those can run you anywhere from $30 to $300 a month.
Okay.
Then there's marketing and advertising,
Yeah.
website development, office supplies, and equipment if you need them,
Got it.
and insurance.
Okay. Speaking of insurance, what types are important for a credit repair business?
So the guide mentions a few key ones.
Okay.
General liability, which protects you if someone gets hurt on your property
Mm-hmm.
or there's damage.
Okay.
Professional liability, which covers you if you make a mistake in your services.
Oh, right. Errors and omissions?
Yeah, E&O.
E&O.
And then cyber liability,
Okay.
which is super important these days.
Especially dealing with people's credit info.
Right. You're dealing with sensitive data, so you got to protect it.
Makes sense. So you've got all these layers of protection.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about money.
Yeah.
How do credit repair businesses usually charge for their services?
There are two main ways.
Okay.
Monthly fees or paper deletion.
Okay.
Monthly fees can be anywhere from like $50 to $130 a month,
Okay.
depending on what you're offering.
Right.
And paper deletion means you charge a fee every time you successfully remove a negative item from someone's credit report.
So you only get paid if you're successful.
Right, exactly.
And how much is that usually?
That can be anywhere from $35 to $150 per deletion.
Oh, wow. Okay. So pretty big range there too.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're starting out, how do you actually fund all of this?
Okay, so there are a few common ways.
Okay.
A lot of people start with their own savings.
Right. Bootstrap it.
Yeah. You can also look into small business loans from banks or credit unions.
Okay.
You could try to find investors
Right.
like friends, family, or angel investors.
Those will investors.
Yeah, and sometimes there are even government grants or private grants available.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's worth looking into.
So you've got some options.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you've got the money, you're up and running.
Yep.
How do you make sure the business stays healthy financially long term?
Good cash flow management is essential.
Okay.
So you got to track your income and expenses really carefully.
Right. I get
Create a budget. Set aside money for taxes and future expenses.
Right.
And maybe even think about offering discounts for clients who pay early.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. And the guide also mentions being proactive with your tax planning.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
Okay.
Understanding your tax obligations and keeping good records
Okay.
is really important.
Got it. Now, I noticed the guide mentioned becoming a certified credit repair specialist.
Yeah.
Is that something you need to do to operate in Florida?
It's not required by law,
Okay.
but it can help you build credibility
Okay.
and trust with potential clients.
Right. Show that you know what you're doing.
Exactly. There are different organizations that offer certification programs.
Okay.
They cover credit repair laws,
Repair.
ethical practices,
Okay.
dispute strategies, all that good
So
stuff.
it's like a professional development thing.
Yeah, it shows you're serious about your business.
Okay. All right. So let's shift gears and talk about getting clients.
Right.
How do you build your brand and get the word out there?
Okay, so first off, you need a catchy business name,
Okay.
something that's memorable and uses relevant keywords.
Like Credit Repair Florida.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Okay.
Then you need a professional-looking website,
Right.
and you got to make sure you're using SEO.
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, SEO, so that people can actually find you online.
Got it. What about specific marketing tactics that the guide recommends?
Okay, so digital marketing is huge these days.
Right.
SEO and PPC advertising are essential.
PPC, pay-per-click.
Yeah, pay-per-click.
Okay.
Then you've got social media.
Great.
You want to be active on the platforms where your target audience is.
Yeah.
Share success stories,
Okay.
educational content,
Right.
to build a community.
Engage with people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what about more traditional marketing stuff or networking?
Referrals are gold.
Oh, yeah, word of mouth.
Right.
Happy clients.
Yeah, if you can get your happy clients to recommend you to their friends and family,
You're right.
that's the best advertising you can get.
That's true. And what about like partnering with other businesses?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea, too.
Okay.
You could try to team up with real estate agents
Right.
or mortgage brokers. They often work with people who might need credit repair.
That makes sense. And reviews, testimonials, that kind of thing.
Super important.
Okay.
Make sure you're collecting those
Okay.
and showcasing them prominently on your website and social media.
Got it.
People trust what other people say.
Yeah, social proof.
Exactly.
Okay. We talked about the legal stuff in general, but let's zoom in on contracts specifically because the guide gets pretty detailed about that.
Yeah, compliance is key.
Yeah, okay.
You got to follow both the federal laws like CROA and the telemarketing sales rule or TSR
CROA and TSR.
and the Florida state law.
Right, the Florida Credit Service Organizations Act.
Exactly. There's no messing around with that.
Got it. So what about contracts?
What does CROA say about those?
Yeah, what are the specific things that have to be in a contract?
Okay, so CROA says you got to give each client a written contract
Okay.
that clearly lays out their rights under both federal and state law.
Okay.
You got to describe the services you're providing,
Right.
leave a realistic timeline,
Okay.
and include a big, obvious notice about their right to cancel the contract within 3 business days.
No questions asked.
Exactly.
Okay, and Florida has its own rules too, right?
Yes, Florida actually gives consumers a little more time to cancel.
Okay, how much time?
5 days instead of,
5 days? Okay.
and if they
cool.
do cancel,
Yeah.
you got to give them a full refund
Okay.
within 10 days.
Of the cancellation.
Yes, 10 days after they cancel.
Got it.
And Florida also requires specific disclosures in the contract about the services and the client's rights under Florida law.
So you've got the federal requirements plus the Florida requirements.
Right. You got to make sure you're covering all your bases.
Okay. And the guide also just stresses having written contracts in general in Florida.
Yes, Florida law is very clear about that. You have to have a written contract with each client
Okay.
that outlines everything.
Everything. Okay.
The services,
Uh.
the cost, how long the agreement lasts,
Yeah.
and the cancellation policy,
All spelled out.
all in writing. And it has to comply with both federal and state laws.
Okay. And one last point about legal stuff that was in the guide. Advertising?
Right.
Tell me about that.
Your advertising can't be misleading or deceptive.
Of course.
And if you do need to register as a CSO locally,
Okay.
which, again, you should double check,
Right.
you'll probably have to include your registration number in all your ads.
Okay. So lots of legal stuff to keep in mind.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Let's talk about the bigger picture now.
Okay.
The market for credit repair services.
Right.
What's the guide? Tell us about that.
So the credit repair market in the U.S. has been interesting.
Okay.
In 2021, it was worth over $4 billion.
$4 billion. Wow.
Yeah, big market.
Okay.
And it was projected to grow to $4.4 billion in 2022.
So it's growing.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant jump.
Yeah. Okay. But the guide also mentions some numbers about negative growth.
Right, so that's where it gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
Even though there was growth between 2021 and 2022, the overall trend from 2017 to 2022 was actually negative.
Interesting.
Yeah, it averaged out to negative 3.2% each year.
Wow. Okay.
And the number of credit repair companies actually decreased too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in 2021, there were over 44,000.
Okay.
And by 2022, it was projected to drop to just over 43,000.
So fewer businesses, but the market is still worth more.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's a dynamic market for sure.
Okay, so why are fewer businesses doing this if there's more money to be made?
Well, it could be a few things.
Okay.
Maybe there's more regulation now.
Right.
Maybe people are getting better at DIY credit repair.
Okay.
Or maybe there's just more competition. And some companies are getting squeezed out.
That makes sense. But even with fewer businesses, the demand for credit repair seems pretty high.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The guide says about 16% of Americans have poor or very poor credit scores.
16%, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a huge potential market for credit repair.
Okay. And do people actually think these services work?
Yeah, a good chunk of people do.
Okay.
The guide says 42% of consumers believe credit repair services can really help.
42%, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a significant portion of the population.
Okay, so what about results?
Do these services actually work?
Yeah. Do they actually help people?
The guide says that 88% of people who used credit repair services saw their credit scores go up.
88%, that's really high.
Yeah, and over a third of them
Okay.
saw their scores jump by over 100 points within 5 months.
100 points. Wow.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay. But the guide also points out that some people spend a lot of money on these services.
Right, it's not cheap.
Okay.
About 32% of people said they spent over $750.
$750, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's definitely an investment.
Okay, so it seems like these services can work,
Yeah.
but it's not a guarantee.
Right, and it can be expensive.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into starting a credit repair business in Florida,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways?
Well, starting a credit repair business in Florida
Okay.
is definitely doable,
Okay.
but it's not easy.
Right.
There are a lot of legal hoops to jump through.
Right. We talked about all the federal and state laws,
Mhm.
and contracts, and advertising, and all that stuff.
Yep, and you got to be really organized
Yeah.
with your finances.
Got it.
And you need a solid marketing plan
Okay.
to reach your ideal clients.
Yeah, and you've got to be ethical.
Absolutely. You have
Yeah.
to operate with integrity.
Yeah, you're dealing with people's livelihoods here.
Right? Their financial well-being.
Exactly.
So you got to do things the right way.
So given how many people need help with their credit
Yeah.
and the fact that these services can have a huge impact on people's lives,
Right.
what do you think are some of the most important things to keep in mind if you're thinking about getting into this business?
Besides all the legal stuff and the practical stuff,
Yeah, beyond that.
what will make you successful?
Yeah, what will make you stand out?
And what will make a real difference for your clients?
Really good questions to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for exploring this with us.
My pleasure.
It's been a really interesting deep dive.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Me too. All right, we'll see you next time.
See you later.